What does Chad Reuter at NFL.com think about Tyler Smith and the rest of the Dallas Cowboys draft class? All that and more in this episode of the Locked On Cowboys podcast.
You are Locked On Cowboys, your daily Dallas Cowboys podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Cowboys. Locked On Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Locked On Cowboys podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We want to thank you for making us your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. I am Marcus Mosher. You can follow me on Twitter at Marcus_Mosher. And today I am joined by the great Chad Reuter of NFL.com. Puts out fantastic content all year long. Also a frequent guest of the Power Rankings Show, one of my favorite podcasts that's out there. With Elliot Harrison. Chad, what's going on, sir?
Mine too.
Yes, there you go. Thank you. I appreciate that. So we are in the middle of July, which means that you are doing some deep dives on some 2023 players. Just in general, how's the 2023 class feel so far? Not bad?
Good. People are gonna enjoy the skill position players a little bit more.
Thank goodness.
We're gonna end up talking about like 25 different quarterbacks this year. And it's gonna be really interesting to see how that plays out. And of course at the other position, the other skill positions are a lot better. Some great guys on defense up top to talk about too. So it's gonna be a lot of fun.
All right. So I brought you on the show today to talk about Tyler Smith because anybody that listened to this podcast or the Power Rankings Show, like 2 months leading up to the drafts, they know what my ultimate worst case scenario was, and it happened on draft night with the Cowboys selecting Tyler Smith. So can you make me feel better about the pick now that we're like 2 months removed from it?
Yeah, I mean, he's got some upside to him. He unlike some guys that have been picked later in the first round, like a Titus Howard, for example, and the Texans chose him later in the first round. He's a better athlete than that. He's a young player, obviously, so he has a lot of room to grow. And he gets off the ball well. He's a really good power player. So hopefully he can take advantage of those abilities over the next couple of years and grow as a player. He's got some things he has to clean up. If he's facing professionals now, and you can't hold all the time against these guys, it's going to cost your team. So he's going to have to work on getting his hands inside, really working to on his technique in order to take advantage of that athleticism as his career goes on. So I don't know that I would have made that pick, but I see why they have interest in him. And if he could actually play tackle as well as, because you've seen the Cowboys have injury issues at left tackle, Tyron Smith. So there's a lot of potential there. Doesn't always come to fruition, but I see what they were looking at. But again, I was kind of with you on that. I thought that was a little bit rich.
You didn't make me feel any better. Let me just say that. Go ahead.
No, I mean, there's only so much you could say because you watched the film and you saw what he did on the field. And, I think teams, they have to, and I've always said, the tape isn't everything. It doesn't tell you what that player is going to be tomorrow. It tells you what he was yesterday. Mm-hmm. And teams take these guys and I'd say, like, we can coach him to be better. Sometimes that works out. Sometimes it doesn't work out. But that's their, approach to it. And I think, I think if you can take Terrence Steele, who really struggled at the Senior Bowl, right? And he didn't end up getting drafted, but he's made some progress. And if you can see that sort of progress with Smith over the next couple of years, then may have something.
Have you seen an offensive lineman that's been drafted, let's say in the first couple rounds, that's had really sloppy technique and, have some of the same problems that Tyler Smith has, kind of correct it in the NFL? Because, I'm thinking of Greg Robinson, who had a lot of similar issues coming out of Auburn.
Jason Smith.
Jason Smith. Never figured it out.
Tough.
Is there a positive example of one of those guys coming in and all of a sudden reworking their technique and being a good player?
I think the problem with guys like that is if you expect them to step in at left, like if you expected Tyler Smith to step in at left tackle tomorrow, I don't know that you can do that. If you get him into a system where you like your center, if you have a veteran center that you trust, and you get him at one of the guard spots, and you focus him on the run game, and you work with him on his pass protection inside, then maybe you have something. And I think guys that make the move, it's tough. We saw with Alex Leatherwood last year, it's tough, right? And I took a note that maybe they're working Smith outside at Tyron Smith, right, at left tackle if they have him. And we saw what happened with Leatherwood last year. So I'm not coming up with a lot of examples of guys that, as rookies, all of a sudden became really good players at trying to clean up that technique. On the other hand, there's not been a lot of guys with this combination of size, athleticism, and relative youth that have come out. A lot of guys that are coming out like 23, 24 years old, coming out, picked up this high, and they never really got it. And you just got to hope, if you're a Cowboys fan, that they figure it out with this guy over the next couple of years. But look, I was looking through that draft and just, if we threw some names out there, who would you have rather they selected, right? Would you have rather they taken Jermaine Johnson? Would you rather have taken Devin Lloyd? Would you rather have taken – I mean, there are some names there, right? So and then maybe taking a Luke Gedeke, in the second round, something like that. And I think you would have liked that, and I probably would have graded that a little bit higher myself. So I'm with you. It's going to be an uphill battle with Smith. You just got to hope that he can figure it out quickly if they're going to stick him in the starting lineup.
I just have seen so many of these offensive linemen over the last couple of years, especially the ones drafted high with bad technique, like just not figure it out. I mean, Alex Leatherwood was your example. I think Austin Jackson was one of those, and was it the 2020 draft? We see this happen a lot. And I've been trying to brace Cowboy fans for the most likely outcome that what if he's DJ Fluker, right? DJ Fluker was a tackle at Alabama who very, very average at best tackle. I think he was a better guard. Hung around the NFL for a little bit. I think that's what you're expecting more so than what you've hit on for the other first-round offensive linemen. Yeah,
I mean, you got to hope. Andrew Thomas was another guy that came out of Georgia. He wasn't as dominant as I think people thought he was at Georgia, and he struggled as a rookie. But he came on, right? I mean, and I think some guys do kind of figure it out. Robert Hunt, another guy maybe that's in that boat that's starting to figure it out now. I think there are guys.
What about Laken Tomlinson? I don't think Laken Tomlinson figured it out until really this year.
Yeah, well, no, I'm not sure what you think about Connor Williams, but I mean – he was a little bit later pick. We're talking second round pick, but a lot of teams weren't real high on him coming out either. And I think they saw what his struggles at left tackle at times at Texas, and they move him inside, and
he's a fine player.
Free agent contract.
Yeah, I would say a quality guard, right? A quality starting guard. I think that's what you're hoping for here.
Yeah,
I think the upside could be really high. It's just. Man, we've seen the Eric Flowers and the Austin Jacksons and the Alex Leatherwoods all struggle, and it does make you really nervous. Now, I want to talk about some of the other draft picks that the Cowboys had that I'm a little bit more excited about. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about BetOnline. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all of your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest sports developments, league reviews, and news, including MLB season, which is going on right now. We've got golf, UFC. BetOnline is your continued source for all of your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, let's talk about Sam Williams, the Cowboys' second-round pick. It seemed like pretty early in the process the Cowboys fell in love with Sam Williams. Dan Quinn went down to Ole Miss's Pro Day to work him out. But it really didn't seem like he was a guy that a lot of other teams had, their attention on. So I'm curious, what were your thoughts as to what Sam Williams was going into the draft?
He's a really talented edge rusher. He's also not just explosive in terms of speed, but he's also a hardworking guy in the field, and you really appreciate that as a player. So, I think in the second round, if you're willing to take that chance, I think that's fine. But again, it is never really about his on-field talent.
Yeah, he's one of these guys that I could see it going either way, right? Because you just don't find edge rushers from the SEC with 4 or 5 speed with double-digit sacks. But there's a reason why he was available in the middle part of the second round. So he's a really interesting kind of test.
Greg Hardy is another example. Greg Hardy, really similar player, had some issues and I know they all end up in Dallas, right? I mean, that's just the way it goes.
Yeah. What about Jalen Tolbert? Because I saw him watching the Senior Bowl cut-ups. Thought it was fine. I hate to say this word, but he was just kind of average during the Senior Bowl drills. I don't think he stood out compared to everybody else. But his college tape is absolutely phenomenal. What do you see as his role in the NFL?
Yeah, he went about where I figured he'd go, late third, early fourth, somewhere in there. A real downfield threat. And I think one of the problems was that he had quite a few drops last year, which is an issue. So if he's got to clean that up. But if he does, a real downfield threat, a real slant after the catch kind of once he gets those strides going. So he went about where he was. And in terms of value, I thought he was just as good of a value as some of these teams that are trading up in the second round, giving up picks to get guys that were of similar talent, honestly. So I think they did a great job. I think that was a really solid pick. I like what he does downfield. I think he's got some potential to be, not a number one, obviously, but a number two, like a Michael Gallup. He could become very similar to that, I think. And so I thought that was a good pick for him.
Last draft pick that I wanted to ask you about is Matt Waletzko. One of my favorite kind of picks that the Cowboys made here on day 3. Because when you're on day 3, Chad, you just gamble on trades, right? Because if you hit on a 6'7" offensive tackle that can move like crazy, you won the draft. And if it doesn't pan out, you're not losing your job over a 5th round pick, right? It's not going to happen. So how long do you think it's going to take Matt Waletzko to develop and potentially be ready, not for a starting job, but for like a swing tackle spot?
Swing tackle. Yeah, swing tackle job. I think he'll be in the mix. If not this year, then they'll stash him on the practice squad maybe next year. Again, he's not that dissimilar to Terrence Steele, right? Because he's got the length and he's not the strongest guy. Another guy that, Steele was not very good at the Senior Bowl. Waletzko didn't really stand out, I didn't think, at the Senior Bowl. I thought he was, there and he was fine, but he wasn't a standout.
I think he got killed, though. I think that's the problem. Steele was bad. I mean, you could go through 5 or 6 reps where he didn't win a single one of them. Right. That wasn't the case for Waletzko.
No. He held his own. He was fine. He wasn't dominant like a Quinn Meinerz or, any of this. And honestly, and I didn't think Trevor Penning was that dominant at the Senior Bowl either. He shoved the Ohio State defensive end's face into the dirt a couple times, but that's not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about blocking, right? But Waletzko is fine. He did a good job. He's got good length, and he's that swing tackle. If not this year, then next year, I think he's gonna be a contributor. I'm a little annoyed that you didn't want to talk about Jake Ferguson, my guy from Wisconsin. But that's okay. That's okay. He's not not a fantastic athlete or anything. I get it.
It's just like the most boring tight end that the Cowboys have drafted in forever. It's just like he's an adequate blocker. He's an adequate receiver. He's an adequate athlete. He doesn't drop passes, and that's about it. It's just, I know there's value in being competent in everything, but I wish there was one trait that made him somewhat special.
And I tell you what it was. When you go back and you watch some Senior Bowl practices, the quarterback was throwing to every time. And they trusted him, and he stood out. And so I just want to throw that in just to make Cowboys understand that this guy's actually a player, no matter what you may say. No, I'm just showing my Wisconsin colors. That's all.
He'll be fine. He'll have an 8-year career as a number 2 tight end, and they'll be he'll catch 16 passes next year, and it'll be whatever. I know Cowboy fans hate my take on Jake Ferguson. Let's just be very, very clear about that. But the real reason I brought you on the show is to talk about the Cowboys UDFAs, because nobody knows undrafted free agents better than Chad Reuter. But before we do that, I want to tell you guys about Rock Auto. Rock Auto has everything from engine control modules and brake parts, motor oil, and even new carpet. Whether it's for your classic or your daily driver, get everything you need in a few easy clicks delivered directly to your door. Best of all, prices at rockauto.com are always reliably low, and they're the same for professionals or do-it-yourselfers. So why spend up to twice as much for the same parts? Go to rockauto.com right now and see all the parts available for your car or truck. Right, Locked On in the How Did You Hear About Us box so they know that we sent you. Amazing selection, reliably low prices, all the parts your car will ever need. Visit rockauto.com today. All right, Chad, the floor is yours. Give us your favorite UDFA signing for the Cowboys.
Well, I tell you what, I went through a lot of the team's UDFAs, and Dallas has one of the best groups, I think. I think a lot of guys that 5 or 6 guys that I thought could be drafted, honestly. And so I'm really a wide receiver. Jakari Roberson is a really good player, and I was a little surprised he wasn't drafted because he's dependable. He's played stronger than his size. He's got good quickness. And even though the Cowboys official website has him listed as Jakari Richardson, not his name, Roberson, I think he's a guy that could flash in camp. And I like him a lot. Ty Freifogel from Indiana.
Yeah.
If he would have come out after 2020, he would have been drafted probably. But he struggled with some drops this year. So don't be surprised if he makes some noise too. Stash him on the practice squad for a year. And then I think he's got some talent. So I love what they did. Peyton Hendershot, another tight end that's gonna contribute right away.
He's the better tight end of the two, by the way, between him and Jake Ferguson. He's the better tight end. Yeah.
All three, Schultz and those two, will all contribute. And hopefully we'll see some 3 tight end sets from them. That'll be a lot of fun. I love 2 safeties they picked up, Marquez Bell and Wanye Thomas. I think Wanye Thomas is one of these safety linebacker hybrids that's just going to be all over the field for them when he gets a chance at first, of course, special teams, because that's what these guys have to make their living to start with. But I thought they got some really good picks there. A couple linebackers and Aaron Hansford and Story Jackson out of Liberty. A couple guys that can really run, get to the football. Micah Tafua from Utah is not an athlete, but he will outwork everybody. And he played standing up. He played with his hand down. He can do a little bit of everything. So, I mean, and Malik Davis, the running back from Florida, one of the most underutilized guys in college football last year. 7 touchdowns and 115 touches. But he couldn't get the ball. And they had so much, they have talent all over the place, and they wanted to throw the ball all over the place. So he didn't get it. So there's tons of guys, I think, that, again, if not next year, you'll see them trying to make a roster.
Yeah, and I'll even give you another one that you didn't mention, Dontario Drummond, wide receiver from Ole Miss. Like he's one of these slot receivers that doesn't run very fast, kind of maybe a little bit like the version of Juju Smith-Schuster we've seen over the last couple of years, but catches everything, right? And he can be a pain to tackle in the open field. I don't know if he makes the Cowboys roster this year, but 2023, 2024, I could see it.
I specifically did not mention him because I knew that the first thing out of your mouth would be 4.75 40. This guy can't run. He can't play.
I mean, he is slow. I think we could probably outrun him, but yeah.
No, I agree. During the year, he flashed throughout, and even the year before. So I agree that he's an interesting guy. 210 pounds. If you can get them the ball in space, he's difficult for these guys, the smaller DBs to bring down. So I agree. He's another guy I had in my list, but I thought you would pull out the 40 time on me.
Any love for Big Cat Bryant, who the Cowboys signed as well?
No. He's what I call a flash All-American. Yeah. If you take his best 3 snaps from any game, he looks fantastic. Mm-hmm. But he had to transfer out of Auburn because he wasn't getting a lot of playing time there, and when he did, he was just spotty. And so, like, if you put him on the field for 10 snaps and he's just rushing the quarterback, then maybe you got something there, right? I mean, I think as an undrafted guy, he's fine, he's fine.
I like Marquise Bell, as you mentioned. I think, the Cowboys love those kind of, we call them second level defenders, right? Guys that just come in, play in the box, and make a bunch of tackles. I think he's going to play a bunch on special teams. He's going to factor in on defense somehow because he's a big time athlete who can tackle. You just don't find those guys all over the place. So, all right. Yeah. Any other thoughts of the Cowboys draft class, UDFAs, before we head out, Chad?
Yeah, just one. Jonathan Garibay, the kicker.
Yeah.
Is really interesting, but, he had one great year at Tech. At the year before, he was 4 for 7 from 40-plus yards. Okay, that's not great. At Riverside Community College, wasn't great. If he could capture what he did last year, that 62-yarder he made against Iowa State could have went 70. So, if he could capture that and become something, that's really interesting. But if not, it's going to kind of be a revolving door at that position for these guys. And, that's not great.
Yeah, welcome to being a Cowboy fan for the last 40 years. So there you go. We're used to revolving doors at the kicking situation. So, all right, that is it for today's show. Thank you for making Locked On Cowboys your first listen today. Now make your second listen to Locked On NFL Podcast. Our national NFL experts and insiders keep fans dialed in with the biggest stories and the latest news from around the league, because an offseason doesn't equal a break in the action. I want to thank Chad for jumping on the show today. Make sure you check him out on NFL.com. You can follow him on Twitter at Chad_Reuter. Chad just had a fantastic article that he put up, I believe it was last week, redrafting the NFL for just the 2022 season. Might be interested to see where Dak Prescott falls in his draft. Very, very interesting. You can follow the show at Locked On Cowboys. You can follow me at Marcus_Mosher. We'll see you guys next time.